Okay, Ken, take it away.
My name is Biberaj. I want to thank you for being here. Like everyone in this room, I believe we are our brother's keeper, but nobody wants to be taken advantage of as such. And we submitted a FOIL request to get a copy of the original proposal requesting the emergency declaration. And what I read in this is very different from what I hear tonight. And you're saying that shelters are here to stay and that contracts are getting approved. It was very clear 6 months ago when the original request was made that this was a temporary request, that the shelter was needed to fill a gap because there was a void in housing. Very clearly in your request to the controller's office, it stipulates that 400 units, January of 2011, were being developed. They were not ready yet, so you needed the emergency procedure to get these units right here, 400 units on West 95th Street. It is a year later since that original date of construction. It is 6 months later, and I think it's been glossed over a little bit, but if I'm not mistaken, the 6-month contract that is approved now, that expires on February 5th, I believe you're saying is automatically being renewed right now, and the paperwork is being going forward. So everyone here should understand that another 6-month request is now moving forward and basically approved. Is that correct?
No, we are submitting, look, I'm not going to stay here if you're not going to let me answer. I've been respectful to you.
We're lost. We do want to...
Respect around here. Let the man speak. He let everybody else speak. Let the man speak. Yes or no?
I'm going to go with that.
As I said before, when I first opened, we are submitting a formal request for a full contract term to the controller shortly next week. The controller, as Scott Stringer indicated, will have a chance to review that, make sure it's compliant with all the requirements, the fair share requirement, the other kinds of statutory requirements, and then he will have a period to register the contract, and we will address any questions that he has. But that's our intention, to move forward with a full-term contract.
So then that means that emergency provision was put forward to get the 6-month approval to bypass an entire community involvement and then now make that 6-month temporary proposal, which was very clearly outlined, now permanent.
No, that's not true. We had an emergency need over the summer for shelter. We came to the community and told you we were going to start under the emergency provisions that are contained. Everybody needs to be quiet, please.
Yeah. Okay. We want to hear from the folks that we've invited. To do that, we need to give them the opportunity to speak.
With some respect. Respect.
Please, ma'am. I got it.
Thank you.
Okay?
I apologize.
We are going to hear from the commissioner. We may or may not like what he says, but let's hear it. And then respond appropriately, follow up with questions. That's what we do on the Upper West Side. Thanks very much.
So the sequence of events was, we came to your elected officials in July, told them that we had a need for shelter, identified the building on 95th Street as a place we needed to move into, that it was an urgent need. We had a series of discussions for over a month before we moved in. We moved in August under emergency provisions that are contained in the city process. We've now been there for several months, and we're formalizing that for the long term. That is an established process in the city charter for contracts, especially ones that you have to move forward on an urgent basis. You have all the opportunity for input. You have a formal contract which has an opportunity for review, not just by city officials, but by the controller. As Borough President Stringer said, he is going to insert himself into the process. That is certainly his right and the right of all your elected officials. But we have been open with the community about what we're going to do. We have talked to you before we went in. We talked to the elected officials to tell them. We tried to negotiate. It didn't work out. We were very clear about what we were doing. So I think we have been open throughout about what we were doing, and we want to work with you. We have also been open in our desire to work with you and to try and be responsive to your concerns.
Last point, just in terms of being open through this process, the original proposal says that the RFP would be sent out to vendors. You just said that you selected these sites yourselves on 95th Street. Did DHS solicit from the broader community across the entire island of Manhattan for emergency sites, or did DHS select West 95th Street and then select this vendor? Or did multiple people have the chance to bid on this opportunity to provide these shelters?
We received proposals from vendors throughout the city for locations throughout the city for shelters that they would like to do. We evaluated based on need, based on our urgency to occupy. And this was a proposal that we evaluated, that the price was one that was fair given our constraints and that reflected a need we have at the moment. We open shelters throughout the city all the time. Next week we have a meeting in Queens about a shelter that we recently opened. There was a shelter in Cobble Hill that we're in the process of working on that we have not opened, but we've discussed with the community. We have community meetings and we're trying to respond to community concerns, and we receive proposals from providers throughout the city that want to open shelters. We don't move forward on all of them. Some of them are not cost effective, some of them do not reflect a need. This was both cost effective and reflected a need that we had at the moment, and so we decided to move forward with it.